Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, the podcast for conscious parents, caregivers, and educators who believe tantrums aren't terrible. They are powerful opportunities for connection, growth, and learning during the first 5 years. You'll explore how to use intentional language to raise calm, confident, and deeply connected kids, because the way we talk to kids becomes how they see themselves and engage with the world. Hi, I'm your host, Cara, classroom teacher turned parent educator and teacher trainer. Are you ready to nurture your children's mind, body, and spirit? Welcome, Toddler Tribe. Let's transform the toddler years together. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe. We are in our Little Linguists Series, going through my book chapter by chapter. And in our last episode, I grounded into the fact that the relationship you build with the kids you care for is how you will have the authority in their eyes to help them grow and develop through each of the phases and stages that go through infancy, toddlerhood, and the preschool years, and help them become really confident kids who build resilience and are able to lean into learning at every one of those ages and stages. So the key, really, the underlying key there is that when we're in healthy, connected relationships based on the core 4 connectors that I shared, we feel regulated. And there's a lot of people out there talking about what regulation means. You can go down the scientific route, right, with the vagus nerve and the actual act of your brain producing the chemicals that help a body feel regulated. We talk a lot about co-regulation and how sometimes when we feel dysregulated, another person can come along and can be what we need, who we need, the energy that allows us to move back to a regulated state. And then dysregulation. That is a big buzzword in early childhood education right now, because we are seeing kids in numbers, like numbers that we've never seen before, be in a dysregulated state over long periods of time, and more disturbingly, actually, feel more comfortable in that state than they do when we're able to help them come to a state of regulation, because it feels familiar. It feels like what they have felt their entire lives growing up, particularly going through the pandemic and in these post-pandemic years. So here's something I really want you to hear, and it's directly from the book. Kids are not born with the ability to regulate their emotions. That's number 1. Number 2, dysregulated kids are not available to learn. So, as a teacher, a brandy new teacher, I had just graduated from grad school. I had done my internship and I was ready. I had my first classroom of my very own. And I was so excited, kind of that visceral excitement. And you know what I did? Well, let me read to you. On my first day in my first classroom, I showed up excited, prepared, and ready to teach, unaware the children in my care were not ready to learn from me. My job during the transition period was classroom management, supporting the emotional interplay between infants and toddlers in varied levels of regulation. I quickly learned 2 things. 1, kids are not born with the ability to regulate their emotions. And 2, dysregulated kids are not available to learn. I had 2 jobs, connecting, then teaching, in that order. Teachers build connections to develop relationships that allow them to impart knowledge. This became my guiding belief system as an educator, inspiring me to shift my focus. When you make children feel safe in connection, loved without expectation, and give them permission to be their true selves, learning happens organically. Oh my gosh, there's just so much to unpack here in those 2 paragraphs. The first thing is that as a well-organized, type A, just finished my schooling person, I really believed, and to be honest, getting my master's degree in education made me believe this even more, that showing up prepared was enough. And that first day taught me so clearly that that's just not the case. Because here's the thing. Your lesson plans are great. Your vision for where you're going with that next month of content, fantastic. But those little people don't understand any of that because they are not primarily living in their cognitive brain. Those nuances, those higher levels of discernment, they're not there in those pre-verbal years. You know what they do? They feel. They feel everything. They live in a state of energy. That's where regulation is. It's from that energy that allows us to be in line or that energy that pulls us out of that line. So your energy enters the conversation before you do. I was shocked. Now, this is saying something that I was shocked by that because there is a picture in the introduction of this book that shows me at 10 years old, deep in nonverbal communication and nonverbal connection with an infant. My true nature has always been emotional connection with kids. Haven't had to say a word sometimes to just help them feel calmer in their space. I'm that person where kids out in public are turning, making eye contact, holding eye contact, and feel connected to me, even though I am not saying a word to them and I'm a complete stranger. So knowing that about me, and then understanding that as walking into a classroom with this position called teacher, I had to have that realization all over again. It just shows you that often as adults, we get a little ahead of ourselves. So then the foundational truth that I learned, right? Kids are not born with the ability to regulate their emotions. And we, as caregivers and educators and parents, we hold them to that standard a bit too often. You should be able to stop crying. You should be able to keep it together. Why is this so challenging? These are the thoughts that go through our head when we see a 6-month-old, a 12-month-old, an 18-month-old navigating something new and falling apart. Again, we cognitively are looking for that next win, that next check, that next phase, whatever it is that we can be like, oh, that's the first time they did that. Yay, they're mastering things. We are checklist driven in the world of child development. They are feeling driven. When we can reset the mind, our mindset, and our perspective to remind ourselves they're not born with the skills of emotional regulation. They learn them through the relationship that we have developed. They learn them by watching us model it. They learn them by being the recipient of our well-chosen responses. Whew, now we're getting somewhere, right? And then this secondary truth, dysregulated kids are not available to learn. If I had just plowed through with the lesson plans that I had created for that first day, because I'm the teacher, I'm the adult, it was the goal I had set for myself. And by golly, I do like to finish what I start. I wanted to put a check mark for myself at the end of that day. If I had just done that, I would have had to suffer alongside these kiddos. I would have had to suffer through their extended periods of dysregulation, and they wouldn't have learned a thing anyway. Except that I was looking for a transactional relationship, and I was not ready to take a step back and cultivate the relational experience. Did this group of kids learn to trust me? Yes. Did they learn that I respected them? Yes. Did they learn that we could handle things together? Yes. Did they learn that when they were dysregulated, I was ready to meet them where they are? Mm-hmm. Important groundwork for the ability to then pull out that lesson plan someday. And, I feel like one of the most important pieces, and we talk about this a lot, it's a running theme through the book, is allowing them to be who they are. There actually won't be a huge number of people in their lives that do. And I know that might be an unpopular opinion, and I know it can be hard to hear. But consider it from your own perspective. How many people in your life do you feel like you have to show up for? You got to weigh your words before you say them out loud. They expect you to be a certain way. They have these visions of you that you feel like you have to live up to. How many people don't have that for you? How many people fit that other relationship that we talked about in the last episode in depth? Very few, right? Be that person for the little people who have entered your world. Be that person. Allow them to be whoever they are. Show them that you get who they are, even if it doesn't match what you think the group needs. Who they are is not changing. This is so important to understand. It's called the who versus what principle in my teachings, and we will get to that. But just for today, I'm going to leave you with this. Who they are, naturally, the characteristics and traits that were born into their being, are not changing. How they choose to use those characteristics are skills that are learnable, and you can influence those. But only if they know that you accept them for who they are. Okay, Toddler Tribe, we're in it now, and this feels so good and so exciting. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a message, DM me on Instagram, email me with my email in the show notes. Say, whatever questions you might. I'd love to hear from you. If you are digging into this and you are as excited as I am to make that mindset shift, I would love for you to share with me one aha moment that you've had. And of course, if you're feeling ready, go pre-order the book. Make sure that it is at your doorstep on April 24th. Okay. You know what to do. My toddler tribe. Stay mindful and proactive until our next episode as we transform the toddler years.